Welcome to Fuel. Fuel stands for Finance, Unity, Empowerment, Legacy. Today, join Dennis, Dr. Jackie, and Mac as they explore part one of One Brick at a Time.
Hey, good morning, Dr. Jackie, Mac. I was
One.
actually I've been working on the yard today, and I was putting down 10 cubic yards of mulch. Let me tell you, my shoulders hurt, my back hurts, everything hurts. So why am I bringing up mulch? Because this is a financial show. Well, while I was out there working by myself, I thought about a story I heard from Will Smith, actually. And he said his father was trying to teach him and his brother a lesson. I know I'm going to murder the story, so I apologize, but um, his father wanted to teach his brother and him a lesson. And he said, build a wall. And he went out there and they looked and they were looking at the length of the wall, the height of the wall that they had to build. And first thing came out of their mouths was, that's impossible. So when that dump 10 dump truck jumped, dumped, excuse me, 10 cubic yards of mulch, I looked at it and said, this is impossible. How am I going to move all this by myself? So back to Will Smith and his brother. The moral of the story is that you don't build a wall as a wall. You build it one brick at a time. And, tying that back to the finances, if you go out there and you write down all your expenses, and it can be a daunting task, and it can make you not want to save or not want to prepare anything. But if you take it one brick at a time, one shovelful at a time, you can do anything. I moved 10 cubic yards of mulch by myself. He and his brother built a wall that they thought was impossible together. So the together part is the better part. But just imagine here, what we do is we try to give you the fuel to help you build a wall, move a mountain, have financial freedom. But it starts with these little concepts that the reason why we go over them so much is because they're the things that people ignore the most. Little teeny concepts, you know, um, something as simple as a famine will come. You save in time of plenty for famine, because famine surely will come. And in my lifetime, I've seen not so much famine in the biblical sense, but I've seen the economy go up and down and up and down, depending on what president is in, depending on what governor you have in your particular state, depending on who's running your particular city, depending on who's running your household. You can go up and down and up and down. But if you save in time of plenty, if you move one brick at a time, if you take these little concepts and help build yourself, you can protect yourself from I'm gonna use famine as famine. So how do I look at this as financial terms? Um, I was talking to my daughter, and we were sitting in the park, and she said, "Daddy, what should I do? I can't find a job. I can't. So she's looking globally, the whole picture of her life. And I said, well, how are you making it now? You've been out of work for a year and a half. She said, well, I did those basic things that you told me about: protection, debt management, emergency fund, and investment. I still don't understand investment, Dad, but those things have kept me afloat. I said, then if they're working, why don't you keep on doing those little things, and sooner or later you'll have a bigger wall. You'll have moved a mountain. you have protected yourself for the future. We get so hung up. When I was coming up, it was go to school, get a job, get a 401k. That's all I was taught. I wasn't taught about protection, debt management, because we didn't have credit cards when I was growing up. Emergency fund. I learned emergency fund first, and that came from experience. Saving up money and then having an emergency and not having enough money. So then trying to save more money and having a bigger emergency and not having enough money. Then I realized that your emergency fund has to grow faster than your other funds. It depends on how you structure your life. So I told my daughter, write down all your bills and break it down by day. How much do you need a day to survive? Then you can find something to fit that bill. So that's how I was thinking about how to start this today, because I know that the only spring chicken on here is Dr. Jackie, and we had to he's laughing.
I'm enjoying, man. Just go with it.
I look at Mac as my older brother. So what we have to do is I think that if we keep concentrating and we keep beating this dead horse, if you take these little concepts, don't stress yourself out, but you got to know your numbers. And that's what I told my daughter. You have to know your numbers. You can't just say, I want to be rich. What the heck does that mean? I want to be wealthy. Okay, I know what that means. But to each person, it means something a little bit different. So I told her, well, this is how much I make a day. And she said, woo, I could live off of that. I said, well, I'm living off of that. But you can get there also by keep doing what you're doing and learning as much as you can and doing it one brick at a time. You don't have to learn everything today. Just learn a little bit. Learn a little bit about stocks. Learn a little bit about mutual funds. Learn a little bit about investment. Make sure your emergency fund is growing, and it's got to grow bigger than 5%, 6%, whatever taxes and inflation are now. Your money has to grow faster than that. So you always have to be on the lookout for a vehicle that can move you along. So that's what I told my daughter yesterday. And it's been about 3 days since I've moved the 10 cubic yards of mulch. So yes, my arms hurt, my back hurts, but it's done. It's only 3 days, so, when I first looked at that big pile from a dump truck, I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm gonna have to go hire me some people. And I called Mac and Dr. Jackie, but they didn't answer. So I had to get a shovel and move it myself. So that's what I was thinking about today, Dr. Jackie and Mac. And I just decided to use it for my daughter to help her apply, what she learned, and then hopefully to inspire her to learn more.
Yeah, that's a good point. Sometimes I think people are so looking at the big picture, and they get intimidated by it. That, to your point, just taking one day at a time, and maybe even in that process that you mentioned, Dennis, maybe it's like, you might have to only be able to attack one of those bills at a time, but get it to a point where you overcome that, move to the next one, and just keep that thing moving, because as long as you're moving forward, you're not going back. So all of that starts with being able to understand exactly how much money you need to live, which is, again, one of my favorite words, called budget. And the only way you can have a budget is to actually know what everything costs. So even when you're dealing with something like a utility bill, where a utility bill will not be the same amount every month, then you just start to do an average, maybe an average of 3 to 6 months, to see what it takes in order for you to heat your home, or electricity, water, et cetera, et cetera. And then you work your budget from there. And just there are going to always be months where you might have to make adjustments here and there, but it'll definitely put you on a clearer path to financial success than to just say, oh, I want to be wealthy, or I need money, and don't have any type of way of actually addressing that issue. My whole thing is like, if you don't have a target, you're just shooting at air. And the other part, if it ain't written, it ain't real. So you got to write it down, and then take the measures in order to move towards hitting that target and hitting the bullseye right down the middle. Dr. Jack?
So I there were so many things going on in my head, and so I'm going to see if I can remember all of them. One of them is that all of what you all are talking about takes patience. And when Will Smith and his brother went out, they thought, I'm just going to put this wall up, until they looked at all of the material and saying this is impossible. Dennis, I don't know, but I'm just going to project. I'm just going to get some mulch and I'm going to do this, until you saw the pile of mulch and you think, okay, this is impossible. And so when I'm thinking of you're talking to your daughter, I'm thinking of talking to my brother, and I'm talking about saving, and he's looking at what he thinks he has coming in, because he's not writing it down, which is another point I'm going to. But the whole idea of whatever this thing they're looking for is impossible, it takes patience to get there. It takes a plan to get there. And that plan of taking the small steps, one brick at a time, learning something every day, all of that is part of a plan. And so, excuse me, when you mentioned writing it down, I want to kind of conclude this little blip there. Because what I find so many times is that it's in our heads spinning, and the numbers get all jumbled up, or the ideas get all jumbled up. And so without writing it down, and it doesn't, it is not real. And so when I'm working with individuals as a financial professional, and looking at what it is they want to do and where they want to go, I don't start with the money, I start with their goals. And what is your goal? Will Smith and his brother was to build a wall. Dennis's was put mulch. Your daughter was to be able to afford to live in this environment where she still doesn't have a job. So it doesn't have to be grandiose, but if you write it down, it becomes a target, as you said, versus shooting in air. And it's no judgment. But let me tell you how many times I've talked to people and asked, so what are your goals and dreams? What would you like to work towards? What are you working so hard for beyond paying your bills? And they stutter and they stop and so we do need to allow ourselves to dream and plan, and then we need to write it down, because it does become a real goal to work towards. So I'm going to stop there and let somebody else come, but I've got some more to say.
Well, okay, cool. Writing things down. So I wrote down three words, situations that are are right now current to, oh, well, this is, what is this, April the something, 9th,
Nice.
2021. So right now we got three things that are on most people's minds. Number one, it's tax time. So if you're getting a return, what are you going to do with it? Number two, the government is giving some people stimulus checks. What are you going to do with it? And number three, there's this thing called, I forgot, PPP, payroll protection something. So if you're an entrepreneur, they're giving money to help you make it through this tough time. What are you going to do with it? You know, so if you're an entrepreneur and you're a sole proprietor, you are part of that PPP situation. The stimulus check, I think, is for, I forgot who it's for exactly. People filed their taxes and whatever. But tax time hits us all, no matter what. But if you're getting a return, right now is the time to sit down, unless you already received it, because this is April. Right now, sit down, not only write all your bills out, like Dr. Jackie said, but also what are your dreams? How long do you want that money to last? You know, I was always taught that most people spend all their time trying to figure out how they're going to spend money, but very people put time into figuring out how they're going to save or protect that money.
Right.
So those are the three words that came to my mind while you were talking, Dr. Jackie: tax, stimulus, and PPP.
Okay, then I'll jump in. Max not saying anything. So I think that's great because for all of those situations, there's a reason and there is a time that you can plan for what you're going to do versus, oh, look at this money. I know I'm getting this money. And then you just wait to get the money and then you run out and spend it. And then what happens when we hear about people who have won the lottery, the thing that we most often hear right after that discussion is that in 3 to 5 years, those individuals, the majority of those individuals who win those big pots are broke and broker than they were before because they didn't plan. And because the reality of it is that you have all these family members who you didn't know you had who come in and help you spend your money. But if you have a plan, they may have been included in your plan, but having a plan that you write down gives you direction that you can always refer back to.
Hey, yeah, guys, I apologize. I didn't jump in earlier because my landline phone started to ring and was leaving a recorded message, and I had to mute myself until the message ended. But to everyone's point, I think it's just so critical that before we just go out and spend, we just need to think about what are we trying to really get accomplished here. You know, it's always like looking at the bigger picture. Yeah, I could take a $1,400 stimulus check, and if I wanted to do my thing, Dennis would understand this. I'm probably going to buy some music equipment, and I'm going to be happy for a couple of weeks, and then I'm going to realize, oh snap, I could have maybe invested in some cryptocurrency, and maybe that 1,400, even in those 2 weeks, maybe it would be 1,700 or more. And so it's just about, I think, more critical thinking. And I think I heard one of you all say it again or earlier that it's also good to get out there and see what other people are doing. I started to kind of look at the people that have consistently, year after year, how they've made their fortunes. And so I'm thinking, well, if I follow the path of particular person and they've made millions, even billions of dollars, even if I don't have as much money to start off with, but I can take what I have and to be able to then follow that same pattern, then maybe, just maybe, I could also achieve some financial success. And so for me, it's really been more about hitting the books, trying to read up on people. And I think we can safely throw out some names, two names that I think of right off the top: Warren Buffett and Elon Musk. And I look at what they're doing. In fact, I just read something related to Buffett and how basically in, I think, about 82% of his investments, they're really only split out into three different directions. One is the commodities, and commodities would be something like Coca-Cola. Then he has some tech stock. One of the ones at the top of his list is like Apple. And then the other one is financial and basically talking about banking. And so out of his whole portfolio, 82% are directed in those three ways. And so I'm starting to think in that way too, as far as certain stocks that I'm considering investing in. But no matter who you follow, you'll see that they have a pattern, that they're not just throwing money to the wind, or they're not just saying, hey, I want to be wealthy. They took the time to educate themselves, to learn how to save, to learn how to invest. So if we ended this conversation right here and we're talking to our audience right now, why would we change the method when the method works? You know, you can't over educate yourself when it comes to stuff like this. You know, be open to read and to analyze everything. And even for you guys that are listening to us, don't take what we say at face value. Check it out. There's no excuses anymore. The reference material is everywhere. You know, look it up and see what other people are doing, and then see if it works for you. And again, the way that I do that, if it makes sense to me, I can get with it. If I can understand it, and when I say makes sense when it's working positively, but also weigh the risk that if it should fall or fail, then I understand why it could happen. And so I know fully, both positive and negatively, where I stand. And then I can make a decision if it's worth the risk. This concludes part one of our episode on One Brick at a Time. Remember to subscribe to our YouTube channel at Fueling Future Generations. And also, if you want to reach out to Dr. Jackie, Dennis, or Mac, feel free to reach them by email at fuelingfuturegenerations2020@gmail.com. We'll see you next time.